Good morning, everyone. It took me a long time to understand something that I wish someone had told me earlier. They ignore you not because you're invisible, but because your presence is too loud for their comfort. They can't handle your confidence, your resilience, your unapologetic ambition, and you know what? That's not your problem. I've walked into rooms where people looked right past me. I've been talked over, underestimated, and dismissed. And at first I thought, is it me? Am I not good enough? But then I realized I was too much for their limited view of what a woman, or anyone from the outside, was supposed to be. Too ambitious, too opinionated, too bold. But here's the truth: they don't ignore you because you're less. They ignore you because you're more than they know how to handle. So, to anyone who's ever felt left out, passed over, or muted, I want to say this: keep being too much. Keep being the person that disrupts their comfort zones. Keep showing up louder, brighter, stronger, because when they ignore you, they're revealing their own limitations, not yours. I've learned to stop waiting for permission. I've learned that when the door doesn't open, you build your own and then throw it open for others. Don't shrink yourself to fit someone's fragile ego. Don't dial it down to be liked. Be big, be bold. Be brave, because someday they'll look back and realize that the person they ignored was the one they couldn't even begin to understand, and by then, you'll already be miles ahead doing things they only ever dreamed of. People often mistake being ignored for being insignificant. It's natural to question yourself when people look past you, talk over you, or act as if your presence doesn't matter. But the truth is, many times, it's not about your lack of worth. It's about the overwhelming power of your presence. Some people aren't equipped to handle someone who walks in with quiet confidence, speaks with clarity, and carries themselves like they know exactly who they are. That energy can be intimidating. And instead of admitting their discomfort, people choose to minimize you by pretending you're not there. Think about it: when someone's light is too bright, those who are still struggling to find their own often squint or turn away entirely. It's easier for them to act like you're not a threat if they pretend you don't exist. Ignoring someone is, in many cases, a coping mechanism. It helps people maintain control in a room they no longer dominate. So instead of feeling small when you're ignored, realize that your presence might be doing something powerful. Challenging the norm, making people reassess their own insecurities, or pushing boundaries they never dared to cross. It's also worth noting that people who can't handle strong energy often project it as dislike or disinterest. But behind that silence or sigh is sometimes admiration cloaked in intimidation. They see something in you that they either want or don't understand. Maybe it's your fearlessness to speak your mind, your refusal to shrink, or your ability to keep showing up even after being doubted. And because they can't process that, they ignore you. But it's not invisibility, it's impact. We grow up being taught that being noticed is the same as being validated. But real growth happens when you stop needing external validation and start realizing that your worth isn't dependent on acknowledgement. When someone ignores you, don't let it shake you. Let it remind you that you're playing on a level that not everyone can reach or even recognize. So the next time you walk into a room and feel overlooked, remember, maybe they're not ignoring you because you're unimportant. Maybe they're ignoring you because your presence demands more than they're prepared to give. That's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of them. And once you understand that, you stop shrinking, you stop apologizing, and you keep walking forward. Unbothered, unshaken, and unstoppable. Being told you're too much is something many of us hear when we dare to live boldly. Too ambitious, too loud, too confident, too emotional, the list goes on. But what if we stopped seeing too much as a flaw and started recognizing it for what it truly is? A strength that not everyone is brave enough to carry. The world has a habit of labeling people who don't conform, who don't shrink, and who don't play small as being excessive. But the truth is, those people are often the ones who change things. They lead, they challenge, they inspire. When you are intense in your dreams, fierce in your convictions, and loud in your presence, it can make people uncomfortable. And that discomfort is often disguised as criticism. But here's something important: it's not your job to be less just so others can feel more secure. If your energy fills the room, let it. If your ambition stretches beyond the limb it's others set for themselves, keep reaching. Being too much means you have something powerful inside you. It means you believe in yourself enough to express all of who you are without apology. People who are content with blending in may never understand why you refuse to fade into the background. And that's okay. You weren't born to be muted. You were born to be real, bold, and alive in the fullest sense. Playing small doesn't serve anyone, not you, not the world, and certainly not the people who are waiting for someone like you to show them it's okay to be fully themselves. In every industry, in every space where change happens, it's the too much people who drive it. The ones who dare to ask questions, take risks, and demand more. History doesn't remember the people who stayed quiet and blended in. It remembers the ones who stood out even when it made others uncomfortable. So if you've ever been told to tone it down, consider that a sign you're doing something right. You don't need to adjust your brightness for people who haven't yet opened their eyes. Keep being passionate, assertive, creative, and outspoken. That's not something to be ashamed of, that's your superpower. Own it, and don't let anyone convince you that being fully, unapologetically yourself is too much. Because in reality, it's exactly what the world needs more of. When people reject or ignore you, it's easy to take it personally. We often internalize that silence or dismissal as a reflection of our own worth, thinking, maybe we're not smart enough, not talented enough, not worthy enough. But in truth, rejection is very often not about you at all. It's about the limitations of the people doing the rejecting. Their inability to recognize your value doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means they don't have the capacity to see beyond their own biases, fears, or insecurities. Sometimes people reject you because your presence reminds them of their own unfulfilled potential. You might be a mirror to everything they haven't dared to chase or become. And instead of facing that discomfort, they push you away, dismiss you, or pretend not to notice you. It's easier for them to reject you than to confront their own inadequacies. That's not about you, that's about them. It also happens when people feel threatened. If you walk into a room owning who you are, refusing to shrink, with clarity about your voice and purpose, some people will instinctively want to shut you out. Not because you're wrong or flawed, but because you disrupt their status quo. They might not know how to deal with someone who doesn't seek approval, who refuses to be tamed, or who brings ideas they don't yet understand. So instead of rising to meet your level, they reject you to protect their comfort zone. It's crucial to remember that rejection is rarely the final word. In fact, some of the greatest success stories are built on being turned down again and again by people who simply didn't have the vision to see what was coming. Their no isn't a closed door, it's a redirection, and often it leads to something far greater than what you were initially reaching for. So when rejection comes, don't let it sink into your spirit. Let it bounce off you. Let it fuel you. Use it as a reminder that your path is not dependent on someone else's limited imagination. You were never meant to fit into everyone's idea of who you should be. Rejection doesn't define your potential, your resilience does. Keep showing up, keep speaking out, and keep believing in your worth. Because you're not here to be accepted by everyone, you're here to be unstoppable, whether they recognize it or not. Waiting for permission is something we're conditioned to do from a young age. We wait to be called on, to be chosen, to be validated. We wait for someone to say it's okay to go after what we want. But if you spend your life waiting for approval, you may never truly begin. The truth is, no one is going to hand you your dream. No one is going to walk up and say, "You're ready now, go ahead." You have to decide for yourself that you are enough right here, right now, and start building the life you want with your own two hands. When you stop waiting and start doing, something powerful happens. You reclaim your agency. You shift from being someone who reacts to opportunities to someone who creates them. There's a freedom in not needing someone else's validation before you act. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces you've outgrown, and instead start carving out places where you truly belong, or even better, places that never existed until you showed up and made them real. People often hesitate because they're afraid of being called too forward or too ambitious. But those labels are often used to police people who dare to move without permission. When you step out of line, the line that society, tradition, or outdated systems drew for you, people get uncomfortable. But discomfort is a sign that something is shifting, and that shift is necessary for growth, both yours and theirs. When you stop waiting for permission, you also stop playing small. You give yourself the power to make mistakes, to take bold steps, and to learn from every part of the process. It's not about being fearless, it's about choosing courage over comfort, action over approval. The world doesn't change because people follow the rules, it changes because someone dared to break them for the right reasons. You don't need someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, it's your turn. You decide when it's your turn, you decide when you're ready, and most importantly, you decide what kind of life you want to create. The people you admire, the leaders, the creatives, the innovators, they all stopped waiting. They started doing, so stop looking around for a green light. You are the green light. Go, make your move. Speak your truth, build your vision, and don't wait for anyone else to tell you it's okay. It already is. There is a subtle pressure in the world to tone yourself down to make others feel comfortable. Whether it's being told to speak more softly, dream more realistically, or behave more acceptably, many people are taught, especially those who challenge the norm, to shrink themselves just enough to fit into someone else's version of what is acceptable. But the moment you begin to shrink yourself for others, you start to lose pieces of who you are. And slowly, without even realizing it, you trade authenticity for acceptance. You were not made to live in half measures. You weren't born to dilute your fire just because someone else can't handle the heat. The people who ask you to tone it down are often the ones who fear being overshadowed or who haven't yet found the courage to own their own voice. Your confidence threatens their insecurity, your clarity exposes their confusion, your ambition highlights their complacency, and rather than rise to meet your energy, they ask you to lower yours. But here's the truth you know, when your silence, your dimmed light, or your compromised dreams. Your voice, your story, your identity, they are yours for a reason. And the world doesn't need a muted version of you. It needs the whole, fierce, unapologetic you. Playing small doesn't protect you. It only stifles your growth and delays the impact you were meant to make. Every time you choose not to shrink, you give someone else the courage to stand taller. You give permission to others, especially those who see themselves in you, to also live without apology. That's how change begins, not with loud announcements or grand gestures, but with one person refusing to be less than they are. It's not arrogance to take up space. It's not selfish to say no to roles that don't honor your worth. And it's not dramatic to expect to be heard. It is your right, and it is your responsibility to honor the truth of who you are, even if it makes other people uncomfortable. You can't live a full life in half your power. So keep being bold in your expression. Keep being honest about your worth. Don't shrink to fit into a box you were never meant to be in. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to stand out with strength, with purpose, and with every part of who you are, fully present and unapologetically real. There comes a point in your journey when you realize not everyone is meant to walk with you. Some people will choose to ignore you, dismiss you, or even criticize you, not because you aren't worthy, but because they simply can't understand or handle the path you're on. And as you keep growing, evolving, and becoming, you will inevitably outgrow the ones who tried to minimize your voice or couldn't see your vision. That's not a loss. That's a sign of progress. When someone can't handle your truth, your power, or your pace, they often distance themselves. They may pretend you don't exist, stay silent when you succeed, or act indifferent when you rise, but what they're really doing is showing you the limits of their own capacity. Not everyone is meant to be part of your journey forever, and not everyone deserves front row access to your life. Sometimes the greatest clarity comes from being ignored. It reveals who is truly in your corner and who only tolerated you when you stayed small. There's nothing wrong with outgrowing people. In fact, it's a necessary part of becoming who you were always meant to be. Growth isn't just about success or external milestones. It's about emotional elevation, inner transformation, and alignment with your purpose. As you elevate, the circle around you naturally shifts. The people who can't handle your growth will fall back, and the ones who resonate with your energy will step forward. The beautiful thing is, once you stop focusing on who's ignoring you, you create space for those who truly see you. The ones who celebrate your wins, respect your boundaries, and believe in your vision, even when it's still in progress. These are the people you want around, not those who tolerate you in silence, but those who amplify you in truth. And for those who chose to ignore you, let them. Let them watch from a distance as you become everything they couldn't see in you. Let your work, your joy, your confidence, and your success speak for itself. You don't need to prove anything. Your growth is the proof. Your presence is the power. Keep moving forward without looking back. You're not here to be handled. You're here to lead, to inspire, and to live fully in your purpose. And by the time they realize your worth, you'll already be far ahead. Thriving, fulfilled, and completely at peace with leaving behind what no longer fits. Thank you.